Before we begin, we would like to say that, in our opinion, what follows is not suitable for children or for those of you who are Marxists, misandrists, work wankers, or complete fucking ming-mongs.
Question 1. What do human stick insect Dylan Mulvaney and Lizzo Lardarse, the human Jabba the Hutt, have in common? Answer: they are both grotesque parodies of femininity. The intolerant left demand we tolerate this bullshit, or the alphabet mafia will be on us with their pitchforks. Which brings us to question 2. Spot the difference. Answer: there isn't any. They both lead to the same place, with your neck in their noose.
Right, should we get started?
Yes!
Right, I'm ready when you are.
Here we go then. Hold tight, everyone.
Oh, for God's sake! Piss off!
Why am I surrounded by idiots?
Hello, Grumpies.
Greetings from the Shadowband Dimension.
If you take an interest in politics, because you don't trust the buggers and want to keep an eye on what they're up to with your money, you, like me, probably watched This Week, the Beeb's best ever late-night political programme, which is where you will remember that old hag and political has-been Diane Abbot from. She's a Marxist fellow traveller of Comrade Corbyn and, apparently, his former squeeze, which is as unlikely appearing as Perry and Yakanos. She's a bit like Cheesy Brie Larson, smug, entitled, patronising, condescending, the Don French of Parliament with a haircut like a monoid, which is probably a wig. Diane Monoid is your typical whinging lefty, always railing against some injustice or other, legitimate or otherwise. And there's no greater injustice, according to Little Miss Monoid, than racism. And racism, according to Diane Monoid, only happens to black people. Really? She said the quiet part out loud recently when she wrote a letter to The Observer, the Sunday version of The Guardian, saying that only black people experience racism, which went down just as well as you might expect with the UK's Jewish community. She tried to cover her enormous arse by saying it was an initial draft that got sent out by mistake, which is a pathetic excuse for getting caught out saying what you really think for once, and nobody's buying it. As a result of her telling the truth for once, unusual for a politician, wooden Cyberman Keir Starlin has suspended her from the Labour Party, which puts her back in tandem with her old ex-BF, Comrade Corbyn again. Perhaps they'll go on another cycling holiday in Eastern Europe together, just like they did in the old days. Just as the SNP are rooted in sympathising with the Nazis, the Labour Party has a long and inglorious history of anti-Semitism, something that came to a head during Comrade Corbyn's time in charge. As we've pointed out on this channel before, there are more Labour MPs in their Friends of Palestine parliamentary group than there are in the Friends of Israel equivalent. Part of the reason why Labour are pro-Palestine and anti-Israel is that they automatically default to identifying and sympathising with the perceived victims of oppression. The foundation of Marxism is, after all, the oversimplified binary of the oppressor and the oppressed. And nobody is more oppressed, according to Diane Monoid, than black people. The left don't only believe in justified violence, such as that recently directed against Posey Parker by transvestites, they also believe there is a hierarchy of oppression. And when it comes to oppression, slavery, which the left forget Britain put an end to without the need for a civil war, is a much worse form of oppression than the Holocaust. The left present themselves as the defenders of the oppressed, but they don't have any cognitive dissonance when it comes to positive discrimination or women-only shortlists. For the left, there's discrimination, which is wrong, and then there's positive discrimination, which is fine. Far from defending the palatable victims of oppression, What the left are really doing is manipulating the oppressed into being foot soldiers for the revolution. The left view them as useful idiots, like the Democrat Party in America, who were the ones who fought the Civil War to keep slavery, and today the Democrats are still keeping black people on the political plantation, which is why they hate non-left black people like Candace Owens, for example, for not sticking to the narrative and maintaining the delusion. The Labour Party had a slogan at the last election, "For the many, not the few," which sounds good on the surface, and who would object to that? Society is, after all, meant to be organised in such a way that, like capitalism for all its flaws, it produces the maximum possible benefit for the biggest number of people. Provided, of course, you're prepared to get up off your fat lazy arse and do what you can. But for Diane Monoid and Comrade Corbyn, that slogan reads as, "For the many, not the Jew." Have you ever wondered why the left prefer black people over Jewish people? Why the SNP prefer Scottish people over English people? Autoethnicity may be a thing in psychology, but either racism is racism full stop, no matter who suffers it, or it's on a spectrum, with certain types of racism more acceptable than others. Marxism's acceptable racism is what gives rise to blackwashing, such as Black Cleopatra, or The Little Black Mermaid, or a non-white Doctor Who. Marxism's acceptable racism is why male feminist Chris Chibnall did episodes like Rosa and Demons of the Punjab, because sitting at the back of the bus in the British Empire are much greater evils than the fucking gas chambers. As for Russell C.U.N.T. Davis, don't get your hopes up for him writing a Doctor Who version of Schindler's List, or a celebrity historical where the Doctor meets Nicholas Winterton. He'd much rather make the Doctor black and put a drag queen in front of your children than enlighten them about the horrors of the Holocaust. The left are today's Daleks, fixated on ideological purity, obsessed with obedience, and demanding respect from you that they have done nothing to deserve and don't extend to you in return. And they're quite prepared to exterminate anyone who isn't one of them, especially if you're Jewish, not black.
Fuck off! Fuck off! Fuck off!